What is up, you guys? Happy Sunday. I am really excited to talk to you alone today and to talk to you about something super special that is happening. So, number one, first things first, if you have not subscribed to my podcast, please hit subscribe. If you have not subscribe to my YouTube, please subscribe, like, and drop me a comment below and let me know you watch this. I appreciate you guys just hanging out and letting me know that you can relate to me in this way or that way. It's super cool. And it just gets me fired up to share more with you. So my name is Courtney Glaser. And today I'm going to talk to you about something so crazy, something that I never, ever, ever thought would happen. And I'm coming to you today, which is like 48 hours away from my 3-year sober anniversary. And never in a million years did I think I would get sober. And not gonna lie, I didn't know if it would stick. I knew it needed to, but I just didn't know what that would look like after, day 2, 3, 4, 5. So, anyways, here we are, 48 hours away from my 3-year sober anniversary, and what a wild ride. I want to talk to you about the things that have happened these last 3 years, and I want to talk to you about some of the reasons why I'm so glad I'm sober, and some of the things that I know I would miss out in life on, or miss out on in my life if I was not still sober. So let's go back to the first year of sobriety. Um, I really just got my act together. It took a lot of adjusting. My sober date, by the way, is December 7th, 2018. I tattooed it on me, and the guy doing it was like, "That's bad luck." And I was like, "No, that means I'm never going back. Like, I am never going back." And so, um, that whole first year was very, very much like about me. It was about learning how to interact with people at parties. It was learning how to be at social gatherings. It was learning how to go on all-inclusive vacations where alcohol is pouring freely. It was learning how to say no. And then what do you do once you say no? It was learning how to go through like celebrations and not be drunk, and how to get on an airplane and not be intoxicated, and how to calm my nerves in normal ways versus taking the edge off with the drink. And it really just taught me that, if anything, that whole first year taught me that I used alcohol a lot. I didn't even know, like, I thought whenever I stopped drinking, I thought I was doing it because I had a problem when I would drink, that I would drink too much. But what I discovered was that I actually had a problem. The problem was, why was I even picking up the bottle? And so a lot of times you'll hear binge drinkers say, "Well, I'm not really an alcoholic, but I drink and I don't know how to stop." But I promise you, the problem doesn't lie in the lack of control. The problem lies in, what are you using alcohol to cope with, basically. I don't believe, personally, I was a binge drinker. That's the type of alcoholic I am. Like, I know a lot of other people that are like that. And the problem wasn't like, "Oh, I had this perfectly normal, happy life. And once I picked up a drink, I couldn't stop. So, whoopsie." That's not it. Once I picked up a drink, I realized I was numbing a part of my brain, and I just kept going to numb it more and more and more. And so, uh, so many people are like, "Well, the problem is once I start, I don't stop." And it's like, yeah, but why? Like, why? And that whole first year was me figuring out why. Well, whenever I would get nervous around people and my anxiety would start to spike, I would drink. Um, Whenever I was doing anything uncomfortable, I drank to numb out the emotions of discomfort. Like, if it was uncomfortable for me in any way, shape, or form, I had a drink. And if I was nervous, anxious, afraid, if I was really, really happy, I would celebrate with a drink and it would numb my emotions. If I was really, really sad or if something sucked, I would numb my emotions with drinking. And what I realized after that last year is not like, oh, you had a problem when you drank. I didn't realize I had a problem grabbing alcohol to deal with emotions. And then I just kept drinking. Okay. So I really challenge you, if you're listening to this, to think about why do you drink in the first place. I would go toe to toe with you and say that your life would be perfectly fine never having a drop of alcohol again. But I also am not the person that sits there and goes, well, they're drinking. It's not it. It's that you can't tell me one good reason to drink. Like you couldn't convince me of one. Nobody could sit and convince me of reasons why they need alcohol, because I have found a lot of ways to celebrate, cope, socialize without alcohol. So I would argue that if alcohol was completely deleted from your life, you'd be okay. And there are other ways to celebrate and cope. So that whole first year was me identifying and realizing, like, holy shit, like I didn't fly sober, I didn't shop sober, I did not go out to eat sober. I did not attend um holiday functions sober. And I was like, oh my God. So it really wasn't even, oh my God, I want to drink. It was, oh my God, how do I deal with emotions? And I've traced it back a lot to growing up. Growing up, we weren't allowed to feel. Like, I remember the famous words, your tears don't bother me, over and over and over. I am a very highly emotional person. I am a huge empath. I can read a room and I can feel a room, and it's to my detriment. My youngest daughter is the exact same way, and I hate it. But I've learned ways to cope and to deal with that. So the whole first year, I realized like I didn't feel things. I mean, I'm talking about happy, sad, sexual. I didn't feel things. I literally numbed all emotions and I didn't process any feelings. And I sure as shit didn't want anyone around me processing any feelings. So I would say things like toughen up or buck up or put on your big girl panties. And I wanted people's emotions to be like this flat line of everything's good. Now, we're not going to get too excited and we're not going to like get upset, and our emotions are going to be all predictable, because that's how I grew up. I grew up with, why are you crying? And your tears don't bother me. You can cry all you want. And just, I grew up in a household where you couldn't feel and you could not process your emotions. I also was told growing up I had anxiety attacks horribly. And literally, this is what I would be told: what have you done wrong? And I would say, well, what do you mean, Dad? And he would go, that's Jesus. And whenever you're having an anxiety attack, it is because you have something on your conscience that you've done wrong and you need to figure out what it is. And so my whole life, I'd be like, well, what am I doing wrong? Why am I feeling like this? He would say, you're guilty. That is guilt. You are guilty. And I would say, oh my God, like, what am I guilty of? What am I doing wrong? What should I not be doing? And so I would constantly be trying to sort out my emotions, suppress my emotions, and like not feel things. And literally, some of this was a revelation I had about a month and a half ago. I was on my mower. I love to mow. And I was like, oh my God, I never would like process anxiety, because I immediately went into guilt. Because growing up, literally my dad would look at me and say, that's God trying to tell you something. What are you guilty of? It's your conscience. What are you guilty of? That's why we feel that way whenever we're not living right. And I'm like, oh my God, no wonder. Like, I'm not blaming my drinking. I'll never blame my drinking on somebody else because it was my decisions, but I will dissect where it came from and I will sit here and analyze the way I grew up. Absolutely. It's my responsibility to not use and my responsibility to get sober. And I take responsibility for that. But I like to figure out, why in the hell was I so effed up to begin with? Okay. So I realized I didn't process any emotions. And that trickled over into my marriage that first year, where if Jay was upset, I'm like, why are you upset? You can't be upset. And he's like, yes, I am allowed. I'm allowed to be grouchy. And I'm like, no, like we've got to fix it and we've got to make it stop. And he's like, Courtney, you're allowed to have a bad day. Like you're allowed to have a hard time. You're allowed to not like something and not fix it to where everyone likes it. Like, and it just, wow, like that whole first year was me learning on like a little child scale of how to process my emotions. And it literally blew my mind. It blew my mind how much I blocked out emotions and I didn't feel. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel anxiety. I didn't feel, I got drunk. I got drunk. And instead of working through feelings, I stopped feelings from happening. So the crazy thing was that I had my year sober anniversary on December 7th, 2018. A year later, I celebrated my year, 2019. I remember having all of my friends over. One of my friends, Leslie, got me like a photo shoot with my squad, with my support system. And it was the most emotional thing ever because some of my friends to this day have never seen me drink a drop of alcohol, but I had friends from everywhere show up. I had my best childhood friend from New York fly in, and I had these people sitting around me like bawling, like, you are so much better sober, like we are so proud of you. And it was just, it wasn't validation, it was them saying like, that like my kids deserved a sober mom. And I don't know, like it was, wow, it was very, very, very powerful. So that was in December. We put our dogs down that December. I call it the triple D. We put our dogs down that December. My dad moved back home in with my mom that last part of November, early December. So I call it dad, dogs, and death. And my grandma died. And that was like the triple D. That was one of the hardest times of my entire life because I finally thought I was going to get my mom back. And and that relationship was going to start to grow, and it wasn't. My dogs had to be put down because they were so old and they were so sick. And then my grandma died. And I handled all of that sober. And I remember my friends would say, well, how do you feel sober? Like, are you doing okay? Like, do you feel like drinking? And I remember saying, thank God I'm sober. Thank God I am sober, because if I wasn't sober, I wouldn't be able to deal with this. It's so crazy because like that year milestone was so huge for me that I feel like if my grandmother would have died, you know, a month earlier, I don't know if I would have made it. I don't know if I'd still be sober, but that was such a monumental milestone that I got to experience. And then literally she died 9 days later, like out of the blue. And I say out of the blue, she had Alzheimer's, but she was doing fine. Like she was doing good for having Alzheimer's. Um, and I call that the triple D. Like that December sucked, but I made it through because I was sober. Period. End of story. Like I don't know that I would have still be here, and I know I wouldn't be sober if I hadn't already had that under my belt. And my grandmother, I mean, my parents kicked me out when I was growing up because they thought I was on drugs and I had never even seen a drug, and moved me in with my grandmother. My grandmother was my hero. My grandmother was the biggest positive role model that I've ever had in my life. And she was the person that taught me unconditional love. She taught me how to give without expectation. Like she was not a perfect human by any means, but she was it. I always say like that day, I mean, there's a photo of us right there and right there. I always say like that day, my number one fan died. And that was devastating to me. And so I just think that was such a pivotal moment in my sobriety. And I know like one of my friends on Instagram right now, her grandfather just died and she's like, how am I supposed to do this sober? And I'm like, girl, like I remember feeling like that and being like, thank God I'm sober because number one, I can actually process everything around me that's happening. And number two, I'm not like gonna like spiral, I guess is the best way to say it, like spiral out of control because sure, I was upset and cried and this and that, but at least I didn't have alcohol on top of that because I don't know what would have happened. So, fast forward through that whole year was hard. And or 2020 because that was 2019 and then here comes 2020. And I'm going to tell you, there is no way in hell I would have survived a pandemic drunk. Can you imagine if I was still drinking during the day and then the world got locked down? Like some people are like, I couldn't survive that without alcohol. And I'm like, thank God I didn't have alcohol. If I had alcohol during that time, I don't even know. Like, I can't even imagine. I would have been strung out. I was already so scared and filled with so many emotions. And I would have just like totally blocked all of those out, had my children at home full time and been drunk every day. Like, I am so thankful during the pandemic. I know the pandemic made a lot of alcoholics, and I'm going to say me being sober saved me during a pandemic because I can't even fathom what that would have looked like with alcohol in the equation. Um, so we made it through there. And so these are a couple of things that I have stopped recently and realized like, oh my God, I was sober for that. Number one, I've experienced concerts where I can watch them with both eyes open and I'm not running to the bathroom over and over and over or to the line to get a beer. Um, I have enjoyed movies with my eyes open. Guys, you can drink at movies here. I'm sorry, like that just blows my mind. Who needs to be drunk at a movie? I'm sorry. Like, why? Why? I swear, like the world we live in is like alcohol is like the cherry on top. And to me, alcohol is like the hand grenade. Like, why did I need alcohol to go enjoy a movie? Like it just, I mean, there were movies that I would fall asleep during because it was one of those movies that where it was like at a place where you could order food and alcohol. And I vividly remember being at one with my children and my friend and her kids and Jay and not even being able to keep my eyes open. And I just think, man, like what a waste. And so I've been able to enjoy movies. I've been able to enjoy gatherings. I've been able to enjoy trips. I haven't made an ass out of myself. I haven't embarrassed myself. I have been classy. I have been proud and I haven't been hung over like that. I've been so clear minded for almost 3 years. And I can't tell you how awesome that is. These are two huge things that I think of. So when I would drink in the water was the worst because if I don't know what it was about me, but if you mixed sun and alcohol, it just like amplified it. And I was known to drink like a like an igloo little thermos and pour a bunch of like LaCroix in it and then put vodka in it. And like I have no clue how much I would drink and you couldn't taste the vodka. And so I would just drink vodka and LaCroix on ice in the sun. I made an ass out of myself once. I don't even know if one of the kids was born. Made an ass out of myself on my friend's boat. Wasn't allowed back on it. They are no longer our friends. I have been drunk in the swimming pool, beyond drunk, which is very, very dangerous. I don't give a shit if you know how to swim. It is very, very dangerous. And so I think like we have built two swimming pools. We could not have done that if I still consumed alcohol. Like I would have been a liability. There is not a chance in hell we could have built 2 swimming pools and had 2 swimming pools with me drinking. Like, there's no way. Then we also were able to get a boat. And I remember that was hard, like getting out on that water and listening to country music and just being like, oh, this is the time I would crack open a beer. And I didn't. And I remember that was hard. And you guys, that would have been a freaking disaster with me on alcohol. I just think like I wouldn't have been able to be responsible for my children. I would have been a grown child that my husband was having to deal with, along with, mixing alcohol in there. I wouldn't have been logical. And I just think like those are just two things I can think of. That my family's gotten to enjoy having a swimming pool, having a family boat, and we would not have been able to have those things if I still drank. And so coming up on my 3-year anniversary, I just think of so many things that sobriety has given my life. Like so many things in my life that sobriety has given back to me. It has given me back my emotions. It has given me back my ability to process feelings that had been gone for a very long time. It has given me my responsibility back. It has given me my self-respect back. It has given me my class back. It has given me control back. And I know I talked about that week before last, like, 10 things it gave me back, but there are very personal things it gave back to me as well. It's helped me set boundaries with my parents. And I never had those before. I was constantly chasing, trying to make them happy, trying to make them happy. And they would say the most hurtful, horrible things to me. And now, like, they're not allowed near me. And it's crazy because what did I do before? If I was going to be around them, I would start drinking. Period. End of story. I would say, well, is dad coming? Yeah, dad's coming. All right, cool. I'd get out the wine and I would 100% have to be buzzed before I could be around him because I could not interact with him because he's just so toxic. And so now I don't have to do that. And instead of coping with alcohol, I set boundaries for me and my family. And it has just been mind blowing how my life has changed. And so coming up on 3 years, like I just want to say thank you to all of the people that have supported me and have watched me grow, and all of the people that watched me make an ass out of myself for so many years, but still stood by my side. Like, thank you. And if you think you might have a problem with your relationship with alcohol, like I'm always here to talk. I'm not here to judge, but I will not sugarcoat anything for you. I believe that this world would be perfectly fine without alcohol. And I believe that a lot of people would be better humans without alcohol, and they would make better personal choices for themselves. And I'll never pretend like I don't see that, or I'll never pretend to unsee that, because I can't unsee what sobriety, the gift it has given me. But I also know, like, I cannot make the choice for anyone to cut alcohol out from their life, or I can't dictate or determine who uses alcohol and how, but I'm always here to talk, and just help you feel it out, because that is a decision you have to make for yourself. And celebrating my 3 years and 48 hours is just mind blowing to me. And I'm just so thankful. So if you have been around and you've stuck around this long, thank you. I can't wait to take you through the rest of this year and into next year with just inspirational stories and some hope for how you can face life sober. So have a great day and happy Sunday. Bye, guys.